Dear Occupant. Chapter 2. The demon always cuts twice. Funny thing about serial killers, they always take something to remember their victims by. Teeth, locks of hair, or personal items like dresses or maybe a wedding ring. Ours liked skin, or at least the general consensus was that he did. As I drove past my dream house once again, I found myself pulled over on the shoulder of the 2-lane snake trail that kisses the driveway of the house. I was thinking about what the killer may do with the skin. Did he pull them out from time to time and run his hands over them, relieving the screams and pleads to stop? Sometimes you have to wonder why a person does what they do, but in the end, the answer is the same. Because they can. I guess in a way the person that cut out this road and the killer had something in common, as rumor had it. A bulldozer driver was tasked with making the road, having lost the blueprints because he thought it would be an epic idea to mix a little wild turkey with his coffee to knock the cold off of that winter morning. Knowing he had to do something, he spotted an old rattlesnake. When asked, he claimed the old snake raised up, looked back at him and said, "Chase me," and that he did, making a number of wild winding roads around here. Before that, there wasn't much of a road, just a set of railroad tracks that ran by the house. In fact, the house was built by the railroad company for their #1 slave hunter. This was big business back in the day. Slaves, convicts, and so-called convicts would be brought out and made to lay track and keep up the railroad for the train. When one would decide it was time to break his engagement with the railroad, the new owner of the house would jump on his horse, find him and kill him or her dead on the spot, making one of the other slaves dig a hole alongside the tracks to cover the body. Sometimes he would just break their leg at gunpoint. He would walk the horse right over the ankle, snapping it. Then he would pat the slave on the head, and say, "You're not going to do it again, are you, because you're no good to us with 2 broken legs." As he rode back to his house, he would yell back at him, "You got till dark to get back to the house." Years later, when historians were writing books and thinking about making a state park out of the tracks, they found a few hundred white tombstones up and down our tracks. Many of which ended up under the old house as a hidden reminder of its dark past. We should talk about the doctor, but we got time. Devil in a handbag, we got words to write. As with any place, we got our fair share of different types of people. Some good, some bad, while others are just downright strange. We got this old gray-haired woman that tends to talk with the dead. She walks up and down town, talking to herself and others. Each time a body was found, she would be there. The old chief did everything in his power to avoid her, but she caught up to him at the 5 and dime, right beside the cold cuts of all places. She grabbed him by the hand and said, "A dark man took your wife, cut her up, he did. He comes for another soon." Maybe the chief should have listened a little more after all the rest of us did. Just a few nights later, the town's water gravity tank had stopped working. Teenagers used to climb the thing, hang out and drink at night. It's a wonder if a few of them hadn't fallen to their death. The city's water guy made the climb to the top only to discover another body, skinned and clogging the pipes. Someone had, taking a skinned body to the top of that thing, opened a locked hatch and dumped a body in there without no one seeing. I found this to be a puzzling mystery, ones that seemed to be piling up around here. The old woman was recorded wandering around and saying, "Peel, peel, peel, who's the next to be peeled?" Another thing I found odd about human nature, we don't really think about things around us until something happens at them. It's just a place, that is, until it becomes a special place. Someone at the newspaper decided it was time to jump on this like bees on honey. The front page of the paper screamed, "Skinner strikes again, woman found in town's water tower, women advised not to go out alone." The problem with this, in our town the women are hard-headed. Every woman was armed to the teeth with something and it wasn't safe to say hello. Things started to slow down after weeks or so. No more bodies were found, everyone including our newspaper had thought that maybe whoever was behind the skinnings had moved to richer hunting grounds. That was the town's first mistake. The devil always cuts twice. In movie theaters were a thing of the past. We used to have a place called the Star Inn. Throughout the week they would play family movies, but on Thursdays and Sundays, they would run more adult double features. The city came down hard on them after a number of legal battles and finally shut them down, but the owners had a love for movies and took the money they had made and built a 5-screen movie theater. This was either a sign our little town was growing or just a foolish investment, but the locals loved it. Playing a horror movie was like picking a splinter out of your hand, but sometimes one would slip through the board that decided what they could play and couldn't. It has always bothered me that a group of fossils can decide what is best for us to watch on the big screen when they proudly watch far worse at home. But I guess the world is ruled by judgmental banjo-playing perverts. What's the old saying? Everyone has a voice and opinion, but many don't speak the truth or do as they do. One such movie made it through the battle lines. Old and young alike filled the theater for the first showing. One of the things about a good horror movie, you never know what's going to be on the screen, especially when someone else is in the projection booth. The theater was full. I even think a few were standing along the back. As everyone ate their popcorn and washed it down with their $5 sodas, things took a fierce turn. Women were being skinned on the film by a man dressed in a white suit. Red splash peppered his attire, but no one saw his face. Someone in the theater stood up and screamed, saying after they almost choked on a handful of popcorn, "That's the chief's wife." Moments later we saw a human shadow cover the screen. It would move to the right and left as if it was swaying back and forth. Another scream was heard from the back of the theater, others pointed as each realized that the shadow was the body of another victim, skinned and hung from the projection booth with film from the movie. Needless to say, the killer was back, but I was still worried about the house on Orchid Lane, and now the theater had become a special place.